Good evening, everyone. It's another beautiful day in Napa Valley, and thank you all for joining us again here at St. Supéry and on our Sustainable Seafood Tour. Music going still. It's really nice to see all of you again. We've got some new friends here tonight, and some new neighbors, but and some old friends too. So it's great to have you back. This new series that we're kicking off tonight. With the beginning of Sauvignon Blanc Day in New Zealand and Sauvignon Blanc Day here tomorrow is all about sustainable seafood and great sustainable seafood that we can enjoy and eat while protecting our oceans, as well as enjoy with great wines. So we'll talk a little bit about the wine. I have with me is my co-host, Chef Tod Kawachi, our fantastic chef from the winery, and he's going to be showing us lots of great things in the kitchen and teaching us a lot about sustainable seafood along with all of our special guests. So it's really fun to have Tod here with us. Tod, you want to share a little bit about our goals for this series? No sound.
Our series on sustainable seafood. Why would we do sustainable seafood? We are very much a sustainable winery, Napa Green certified, which means that our commitment to sustainability for our winemaking practices, the way that we treat the vineyards and our facilities and our building and everything is all very green and sustainable. And so I'm very happy to follow suit. I believe very much in that philosophy of being sustainable in the kitchen as well. So any type of seafood that I bring in, I'm trying to bring in the most sustainable, something that is going to be there for future generations, for my daughter, my family to have, for everyone to enjoy. It's just an automatic, it's a natural thing for me to want to do. So I'm happy to do this. Each week we will be featuring a different wine with a different type of sustainable seafood. We'll have different guest speakers and purveyors and some of the suppliers who can lend their expertise and their experience to the whole virtual tasting for you. So we really hope you enjoy this. We are fortunate today to start off with, from the Monterey Bay Aquarium, the Seafood Watch, we have Peter Adame, who is going to discuss the whole Seafood Watch organization, which is something that I've utilized and prescribed to for many, many years. So I'd like to turn it over to Peter to have him kind of touch base on the Seafood Watch program.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. My name is Peter. I'm with the Monterey Bay Aquarium. If you guys have visited the aquarium before, you might know that our mission is to inspire conservation of the ocean. And so we have these beautiful exhibits at the aquarium where people get a chance to see the wonders of our ocean. And we have a whole division at the aquarium dedicated to conservation and science. And so we do a lot of work with plastic pollution, climate change, studying different animals like sharks, tuna, otters. And then we also have our sustainable seafood program, which is called Seafood Watch. And so Seafood Watch started in 1999, and it's a free guide to help people make better seafood choices for a healthy ocean. And that might sound hypocritical in some ways, an aquarium talking about eating seafood, but we're looking at all of the different impacts that our ocean is affected by, and the seafood industry is one of them. And so what we do is we have a free guide that helps people make better choices, and we break it down like a traffic light system. So we have a green, yellow, red list. The green list is going to be the best choices. Those are species that are abundant, they're well managed, and they're either caught or farmed in a way that has minimal impact on the environment. Yellow is our good alternative list, and then red is our avoid list, so seafood to take a pass on. So we work with a ton of different businesses and restaurants and just everyday seafood lovers as well, just to help them make better seafood choices with our ocean in mind.
That's fantastic. You know, I also absolutely love your app, which I think everyone should have because it has a lot more types of seafood on here because there's thousands of different types. I definitely recommend this when we are out dining, as well as the pamphlet. And if you'd like the pamphlet, just send us your address and we'll pop that off to you if you go to St. Supéry/seafood, along with Chef Tod's sustainable seafood recipes and some cool sustainable seafood coasters. So that's kind of a wonderful tool that you have. So tell us a little bit more about how you determine your ratings and the processes that you go through.
That's a great question, Emma. So we have a science team that's dedicated to doing our Seafood Watch ratings. And our team is split in half between fisheries scientists that are focused on wild capture seafood. And then we have a team of aquaculture scientists that focus on farm seafood. So agriculture is farming on land, aquaculture is farming in the water. And so we have different criteria we look at for both of those. So with wild seafood, we're looking at things like how are the fish populations doing, what bycatch levels do they have? So bycatch is accidental catch of other species like sharks, turtles, whales, seabirds, ones we don't want to see. And so we also look at management, what kind of regulations are in place. With farm seafood, it's a whole nother scope, but we're looking at things like what are they feeding the fish at the farm? Where's the waste from the farm going? Do they have any issues with disease? And if so, are they using antibiotics or chemical use, or are those diseases impacting other species? So it's this whole broad spectrum of data, and our scientists do months and months of research to create these reports, and sometimes they can take up to over a year to complete them. And so we're constantly putting out new and updated information. So while these pocket guides are great, the consumer guides are awesome. Like you said, the app is fantastic, or even just seafoodwatch.org is very mobile friendly as well. And it has all of our recommendations. So you can just search any type of seafood. If you can figure out where it's from, it'll narrow your search results, because a lot of times it does depend on where it's being caught or farmed.
Awesome. That's really great. And there's a lot of ways that the consumers can use this, and other suggestions for us to be better participants in making sure that the oceans are sustainable?
That's a great question. So we're always, we always tell people that they can play a role just by asking more questions. So we want consumers to use their voice, their purchasing power too, but even your voice is so powerful. Just asking those questions like, hey, do you know where your shrimp's from? Hey, do you know where your salmon's from? Is it wild or farmed? Really letting businesses know it's important, because we've found as a program, we're actually able to make more impact working with these larger businesses. And we're very fortunate to partner with a lot of different restaurants and retailers like Whole Foods Market and Blue Apron and Red Lobster is another company we recently started working with, and they're buying such mass amounts of seafood. It's the businesses that can really tend to move the needle, but the businesses are only going to make these commitments and these changes if consumers make it a priority.
Yeah, that's so true. And, you know, I neglected to mention, those of you who are new, to please participate in the group chat and ask any questions of our speakers as we go along. I want to make sure that you get your seafood questions answered, your food questions answered, your wine questions answered. So we love looking at you online and seeing what you're making at home. And we love to hear from you, what you think of things. And don't be shy. I hope everyone is drinking their wine, because some of you I can't see. And we do have this fantastic Napa Valley Estate Sauvignon Blanc in the glass. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I don't want anyone to have to hold off, because it is after 5 even on the West Coast now, as well as the East Coast. So I hope you're enjoying that Sauvignon Blanc as we go along here. And we also have from the Monterey Bay Seafood Watch, Sheila Bowman, who's the Seafood Watch Manager of Culinary and Strategic Initiatives at the aquarium. And, you know, Sheila's been there 15 years, and I'm sure you have a lot of fantastic suggestions on what we can share this Sauvignon Blanc with, and how we can be more thoughtful about the choices we make at home as well as in restaurants.
Thanks, Emma. How am I doing with sound? Can you hear me?
We can, yay.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Emma and Chef Tod, for having me on your sustainable seafood tour. So excited to be here. And, you know, Peter just mentioned a whole lot of the important considerations that have to do with Seafood Watch. And really, for all of us, in short, what the Seafood Watch program has done is taken a lot of those environmental concerns we hear about with overfishing and perhaps damaging of habitats, or maybe chemical use or other problems with farmed fish. And we really look at all of those and put them together into that singular recommendation of red, yellow, green. So what consumers and businesses and really everyone can do is rest assured that we're looking after the environment, and all you really have to do is look after the fish that you choose. So really key to keep away from the red list items, and as much as you can to be focused on those best choice green list items. And you know, I've worked at the aquarium for quite a few years, and one of the things that I would say that makes the Seafood Watch program such a positive, wonderful place is we've seen so many species and products move off the red list up to the yellow list, and in some places to the green list. And it's just a really positive showing of how many consumers and businesses are asking for this, and how producers, so the fishermen and the farmers, are making changes so that they can have a more sustainable product. So what we're seeing is, you know, the beginning or the middle of a food movement. You know, we're not 100% there yet, but every time you make a better choice, you signal that we want more sustainable food. And really, don't we want sustainable seafood and the sustainable wines like we're drinking tonight, and more sustainable everything with the environment in mind as we're producing food. So all that serious stuff being said, you know, we also want to enjoy what we're eating. And I think seafood paired with you know, a wine like we're having tonight is, you know, number one opportunity to enjoy the food that we're eating. So the one thing I want everyone to, you know, to take away from this is it's not a give up seafood kind of messaging. It's really eat more seafood, eat the right seafood. We know from the work we've done that fish, whether it's farmed or wild, is a more sustainable choice, making a better choice for climate change impacts than most of the other proteins, the beef, the pork that you're going to find on your plate. So eat seafood. And just a couple tips that we have that, you know, as soon as anyone talks about Sauvignon Blanc and seafood, you know, we're going to hear from a few chefs downstream, and I want to not steal all your thunder, but, you know, the first thing to think about is shellfish. So mussels and clams, and especially those oysters, which sit on that, our green list as best choices and really have been there for many, many years. These are some of the most sustainable proteins that you can eat. So if you're a fan of these, eat more. And if you haven't tried one before, give them a go. You see a raw plate of oysters here, and that's certainly delicious. And I would say for people who are less excited about raw oysters, here's a beautiful dish of a cooked oyster. You can just really take a whole oyster, put it right on your grill. It'll pop open as it cooks. Put some breadcrumbs, some butter, maybe just a little bit of tonight's Sauvignon Blanc on there, and let that kind of come to this bubbly, lovely bite. And I can almost assure you that even if you don't like a raw oyster, you're going to love a cooked oyster. And similarly for clams and mussels, you know, giving a little bit of grilling. Oysters are pretty easy. It's like pretty go-to. If you are inland and maybe have a little less access to that, you might look at something like a shrimp product. We've been seeing, even with all the closures of fish markets, you know, coast to coast, people are still over in their groceries in those freezer aisles, finding a good array of seafood. You're really looking to use our list to identify the better products. So when it comes to shrimp, U.S. farm shrimp is one of the better products you can eat. It's really getting, having less travel time and food miles on it, and much more kind of localized and clean product. And I would say the only trick about frozen seafood, I know people have some misgivings. Do I really want to eat frozen seafood? If you get quality product and you let it defrost at its own rate, as opposed to trying to microwave it or dunk it in boiling water to get it to defrost, you know, let it just defrost in your kitchen or in your refrigerator overnight. And I think you'll find that U.S. farm shrimp is another excellent, excellent item to go with this particular wine.
Yeah, thank you for those suggestions. You know, I do often buy U.S. Farm-raised shrimp, and I buy it at Costco quite often, and I remember in the morning to take it out, put it in the refrigerator and defrost, and it's really quite delicious. And we have with us today Chad Sokols, the Vice President at Costco Wholesale Wine and Liquor, and they have been really focusing on sustainable practices through their business in all areas. But Chad had the opportunity to work for quite some time in the seafood department in getting their seafood to be sustainable and working with the farmers and the purveyors, and also now on the wine side. So you're our perfect addition this evening to join us. And I really would love you to tell everyone about the sustainable programs that Costco has, because it's really impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, to speak about Costco and sustainability, I mean, sustainability for us, especially in the seafood industry, is so important, mainly because of how large we are. Obviously, Costco's huge, and we have a large customer base, and we're purchasing a lot of seafood. So it's very important for us to make sure that those not only species are sustainable, but the fisheries around them, that everything within the supply chain is sustainable. And because of that, we don't work with a lot of people. We work with very few select people. That we rely on outside third-party audits, as well as working with Marine Stewardship Council. We work with Aquaculture Stewardship Council, MSC, ASC. We also work with the World Wildlife Federation as well. So we try to get as much outside input as we can into the people that we are working with. And you know, one of the interesting things I know for myself, traveling and spending a lot of time in foreign countries, traveling around here in the U.S., but you know, last year I spent quite a bit of time in India, traveling through shrimp farms, and we have very few select people that we actually want to buy from, and they're people that we spend a lot of time with personally. They're farms we visit all of the processing plants, we require yearly audits. But it's interesting, even some we go to, we've visited many, many times over the years, and it's taken a long time to get many of them up to speed where we feel comfortable buying product from them. And, you know, the interesting thing for myself, I've been in this business a long time, and when you go out there, you know, the most interesting thing is to see how personal it really is, because what really makes a great facility or a great company and, you know, to buy from, it comes down to the individuals, who's running the plants, who's in charge, you know, the people working there, are they passionate about sustainability? Are they passionate about what they're doing? And it's amazing to see when you combine, you know, good facilities with good people, you know, really good things happen. I've been to places where that, you know, looks very shiny on the outside. You start digging in and you just find they don't have the right people in charge sometimes. And it's really interesting to see at the end of all, as big as this business can be, it's, you know, it can be very personal at the same time. So those are kind of surprising things for me that I found in that industry. But, you know, by and large at Costco, because we don't buy from everybody, we buy from very few select people, you know, it really helps us maintain the standards that we expect.
Yeah, and I love that you know their entire supply chain, and I feel like there's a lot of similarity between what we do at St. Supéry being Napa Green certified and your programs for sustainability, because the Napa Valley Vintners Association, you know, started Napa Green and helps our members get certified, and we got our first land certification in 2008. And then we got our winery certification in 2012. And there was, you know, the land certification, you know, we were really right on board, had everything going. But in the winery, we needed some help to do things the right way and how we're using our energy and our water. And we got that help. But then we also have to get recertified every 3 years in the winery and every 5 years in the vineyard. And I think that's true also for your purveyors and farmers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you cut out a little there, Chad. There we go.
Sorry, something stalled out for a second there. Can you ask that one more time? Sorry.
No, I was just saying, so I think that your purveyors also need to continuously be recertified and continuously improve the same way that our Napa Green certification is designed.
Exactly, yeah, and that's very important. On most of our visits too, every time we go out on visits, you know, we always visit people that we're already working with at least every year, sometimes more often than that, in addition to looking for new suppliers. And the ones we go back to, we're always finding things that we can improve on. And what the best thing part about it is when we hear back from some of those fisheries or some of those suppliers of the farms, when they tell us and when they say, thank you, you've made us better. That's for me is one of the best things we could be a part of.
That's awesome. And there's a question here on the chat asking about how to buy U.S. shrimp. And I know you guys have them. And when I'm there, I look on the back for that U.S. shrimp. But maybe it's not in all the Costco's too.
Mm-hmm. It's sometimes, yeah. We don't always have U.S. shrimp. We typically have the wild caught Gulf shrimp available in the fresh meat department, which is a little bit separate side. On the frozen side, almost everything we're doing right now is coming from overseas. There's two different ways to get it at Costco, but you just have to look on the bag. It always says country of origin. The great thing about our product that I'm excited about too is we do everything. There's no antibiotics, there's no preservatives, very, very, very clean product, as clean as possible.
Super, thank you for that. So tell us, a little bit, we've got a lot of home pantry situations going on, and we've been talking a lot about what to do in the home pantry, about the canned fish and programs that you have at Costco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously we sell a lot of tuna, and same kind of thing. We have very specific, stringent standards of the companies that we work with, and we work very closely with them to get them to the level of sustainability that we're looking for. And the challenge right now with pantry loading is we're selling out of so many things so quickly that it would be easy for us to just go out in the open market and pick up product that's readily available. But if it doesn't meet our same standards and it doesn't have the same commitment to sustainability, we can't do that. So we're very strict on that right now. So right now is probably one of the most challenging times I've seen with Costco ever, really, is trying to keep up with the demand and make sure that those standards are the same, and you can't cut corners. And it's tough. But luckily we've got a great buying team out there, and they're doing a great job right now trying to keep up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot like being an estate winery, which we are. Everything's 100% estate grown, produced, and bottled. If we have a short vintage, that's all there is. That's what it is. If we've got frost or hail, that's the limit that we've got. So really challenging. And Todd, I know you're a huge Costco fan and a favorite of coming up with creative Costco things. So do you have some questions for Chad?
I am. Well, Chad, thank you for Costco being so sustainable and making that really huge commitment. For the amount of sales impact and the industry impact that you can have to make that kind of a commitment and to really encourage the sustainability is huge. As if I need another reason to love Costco. It's kind of like the funny joke at home that, Dad's going to Costco, it's a Costco weekend and everything.
Nice.
I'm thinking right now as you're talking about things, and the tuna, I have the safe catch tuna at home. I have the salmon, the farm raised salmon, which I feel comfortable and really good about purchasing all the time. So they're on my Costco shopping list all the time. So I really enjoy that, and
great.
Just glad that making such a huge impact in that way. It just encourages the sustainability idea for everybody, and I think that's what the public is demanding now. There's that need for traceability, and everyone wants to see where their sourcing is coming from. So that's a great commitment that you're making.
Yeah, thank you.
And someone's asking for more canned anchovies too.
Oh, yeah.
While we're focusing on that.
Yeah, those come and go. The tricky thing about Costco is that there's different regions, different buyers across the U.S. So if you're looking for something, it may not be in all buildings. I'm located in Seattle, but I came from Northern California originally, and so it depends on where you are. But if you type in the chat, let me know where you are, and I'll see what I can do.
All right, super. Well, before we go to Chef Tod making us a fantastic dish to pair with this wine, we should show you where this wine came from, which is from our Dollarhide Ranch. And we've got Matt Stornetta, who's our Director of Viticulture Operations, out at the ranch at the top of parcel 24. And it's just a gorgeous day in Napa Valley. You can see our big lake there. All of our water is reclaimed rainwater that we're using out at the ranch. You can see where we've mowed and are getting to replant that parcel right across from the lake. Just a fantastic day. We had quite a bit of wind out there. I don't know, Matt, how the wind is right now. If you can tell us what we're seeing, or if it's a little too windy to hear you. I'm guessing it's a little too windy to hear you because it's really windy at my house.
How's this? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Show us where the Sauvignon Blanc is.
All right. How's that? You see the knoll right out in front of you?
Yes.
It's a bluebird day out here. It's gorgeous. So what you're looking at on the other side of State Dam is parcel 4, some of our early 80s planted Sauvignon Blanc. This whole vineyard started development in the early 80s. So we're really sitting on some very valuable fruit here that's got a lot of history, and we take a lot of pride in our own sustainability efforts here. We do everything from plant different cover crops based on the soil needs, bird boxes, owls. We preserve as much of this aquatic habitat as we can for waterfowl, for the different fish species that we have. We do all sorts. We're very proud of this place and the sustainability efforts that we do take.
So, you know, the land is also certified fish-friendly farming, and I think it's particularly important on the spot that you're on, because you're on quite a steep terrace. If you can show everybody, and it looks like, you know, you haven't been manicuring the ground, but you've got a great cover crop going there to that you've mowed part of it and between the rows. And maybe, Matt, you could just tell everybody about why we have that cover crop out there. And
yeah,
what
so
it is.
The main purpose is erosion, but we're really fortunate here. I mean, a lot of the grasses that you're seeing are native bromes. We've got fescues, and these are all grasses that are native to the area, and they bring in a lot of beneficial insects as well. So as we're talking about sustainability, I think a big part of that is diversity. And what we're really fortunate to have out here is such a vast property with really only 30% planted to grapes. So it really gives us a huge advantage in just our natural pest pressures and disease controls. But to the erosion, all of these grasses and the mowing, everything we do on these hillsides is to prevent the earth and the soil and the sediment from moving. And fortunately, we've been pretty successful. Drier years do make it easier than wet years, but nonetheless, the efforts are grand on preserving these hillsides.
So, you know, the ranch is a little over 1,535 acres, and only a third of it is planted to grapes. But we do grow at the property about 8 to 9% of all the Sauvignon Blanc in Napa Valley. And that Sauvignon Blanc is a field selection that we have been propagating of Clone 1 for over 20 years. The majority of the Sauvignon Blanc in your glass right now is our own proprietary field selection that we grow out at the ranch. But, you know, as Matt said, we're promoting that biodiversity with our cover crops and so forth, but we also, with our peaches and our orchards, we really want to maintain that biodiversity of the property and the ecosystem as a whole, because we want that system to be in balance, and it makes it a lot easier to farm that way. And the entire property is certified Napa Green, so it means we need to not just worry about the vineyard, we need to worry about everything and the runoff, so that entire property is together for future generations. So this Sauvignon Blanc is 100% Sauvignon Blanc. From this property. It's all stainless steel fermented. We pick the fruit at night when it's really cold out there. You know, in August and it's 45 degrees in the middle of the night, Matt's got his woolies on and out there picking grapes and really bringing in this great, vibrant, fresh fruit. We bring it in and take it straight to press and ferment it while it's nice and cold. Just really great, beautiful fruit there you see coming in from the ranch. We gently destem it. There's a very gentle cover on that destemmer. You see it going straight to press. And, you know, one of the things that we do, it's a little like olive oil. You've got that free run, and then you've got that first cold, very gentle press. And that hard press is going to be pulled away because we want just that pure expression of fruit. And that's what we're trying to do with this Sauvignon Blanc by fermenting it in stainless steel. You may have had our Dollarhide Sauvignon Blanc that has a little bit of barrel fermentation, but our style here is fresh, vibrant, bright, delicious, very easy for some of us home chefs to be drinking a glass while we figure out what we're going to eat for dinner. But just some wonderful flavors, and Todd and Michael always, you know, note that there's that a little hint of fennel in there that gives it just a little brightness as well through the palate. Just absolutely delicious. So Todd, tell us what you've made for us this evening to go with this Sauvignon Blanc, and why.
Well, starting with the wine, of course, always. I know that I've got a really vibrant citrus type of a wine that's got a nice clean acid finish. So I know that it'll go really well with the seafood. In this case, I want to do something that really kind of emphasizes more of that citrus tone that you pick up. I always can detect a lot of grapefruit or zest in the aroma of our Sauvignon Blanc. It's very fresh and light. So in most cases, the preparation that I would do for seafood would not be too heavy. It wouldn't necessarily be cream sauce or tons of butter. In this case, you have to pair it up to really showcase the wine. So it would be something on the lighter side. What I thought I would do for tonight is utilize a really nice farm-raised salmon. It's a farm-raised salmon that I would use during the time when our local salmon season has not quite gone full stream in the commercial sense, and it's coming up very soon. So I'm excited to do that. From a sustainability standpoint, I will switch over and start to utilize the wild local salmon as much as possible while it's available. Won't get much more sustainable than that, but I do feel really good about utilizing some of the farm product now that's out there in the off season when I can't necessarily get the wild local salmon. So this salmon that I'm bringing in today is actually Oroking salmon, and it is a really nice green rated farm-raised product from New Zealand. And so it's got the buttery characteristic to it, the oil characteristic, those nice omega-3s that are so good for you. The texture of the fish is really nice as well. And so what I thought I would do is emphasize a cooking technique or a cooking method like curing. And so I'm going to do a salt cure along with some aromatics and some citrus from our estate. I'm going to basically make almost like a lox, a version of a lox where it's cured. To show you, I did a little bit of foraging this morning and I came up with some of our citrus zest. The recipes for this are included in the invitation that you had for this virtual tasting. But to show you basically the standard things that you might find in a cure or salt rub on the outside would be some kosher salt. I've got some sugar, a little bit of brown sugar to give it a little depth on the sweetness. There's some spiced ginger, ground ginger here, and some ground coriander. And then what I really think brings it in together with the Sauvignon Blanc is some zest. So this is fresh zest off of our own citrus, comes from our estate that I picked earlier. We've got lemon predominantly, a little bit of orange, a little bit of lime, and then the grapefruit, which I really pick up in the aromatics here. It's pretty simple. The recipe itself, you're going to have to start a little bit in advance because it does take a while for this to cure. So it needs to sit in the salt, and essentially what you're doing is making a salt spice rub mixture, and eventually the salt will start to draw out those essential oils from the zest as well as some of the water from the salmon, from the fillet. And you want to ask for a really nice piece of salmon fillet, make sure that it's sustainable. In this case, the salmon that I have at Oroking has the skin on to be a little bit of a protective barrier, so that the texture of the fish doesn't become too ham-like or hammy-like, where it becomes a little bit hard and dry. So that's really simple right there. The salmon itself, this is a nice fillet. You can see it's beautiful color. I've got it in a pan already. The skin is on already, but I've removed any of the excess trim, or you can have your local fishmonger or butcher do that for you. I left the skin on. It's just a little bit of a protective layer there. I'm going to put a thin layer of the salt down first. And this is just pretty standard. You can also come up with any other different types of spices or seasonings or herbs in here. You can imagine gravlax with dill. That's also a great one. Dill goes very well with Sauvignon Blanc. They're very good friends. And then I'll put a nice coating of the salt over the top as well. Not too much. And again, this is one of those things that you have to plan a couple days in advance because it does take a while for it to cure. We are going to put some pressure on this and essentially press it so that it kind of compacts. It will slightly press out some of the excess water, concentrating the flavor and really accentuating those oils that come out of the salmon itself. So just a nice thin layer like that. And into the refrigerator, you're gonna wanna put a piece of plastic wrap over this, keep it airtight. And then you wanna put another pan right over the top. And so you could use a baking dish or two if you have two duplicate sizes of baking dishes. Now you're gonna actually let this cure in the refrigerator. Just tuck it away in the corner somewhere and let it sit for probably about 2 to 3 days, depending on how thick your fish fillet is. If it's a little on the thinner side, it won't take as long for the salt to kind of permeate through. There's a little bit of osmosis going in there. The salt permeates into it, the water extrudes out of it. You're gonna wanna press this. So if you have any kind of canned goods or canned products probably in your pantry, you might wanna press that onto there. Anything that's gonna put some pressure onto it, it will compact it down. It's that same idea when you're making lox or gravel lox. So if you put a weight on there, maybe flip it over on a day and then go another day after that, it might take upwards of maybe 3 to 4 days depending on the thickness of the fish itself. So if I were to put on a piece of weight on here, something heavy that's going to give it some pressure, that's going to help that whole process. So after a few days then, what I'm going to find is the salmon that I can take out from the refrigerator, rinse off all of that salt really well, and then I'll have my salmon that is cured. And you can tell that there's a difference in the exterior where the salt is versus the interior that still has that really nice kind of a creamy texture to it. It is not totally raw and it's not totally cooked. That's one of the things, the interesting things about salt curing. It definitely has its own seasoning on the outside, but by the time you eat it with your other ingredients, it's a really nice mix. And so what you will want to do after rinsing it and patting it dry and getting off all that excess salt is do a very thin slice. So if you have the sharpest and thinnest knife in your collection there, you want to do a nice thin slice, kind of crab lock style. And just do a very thin, paper thin slice like so. I like to remove this little bloodline section. You've got a beautiful section there. You can see the oils kind of glistening from here. Should be really delicious. What I did then was took about 4 of those slices, and I kind of put together an example presentation dish for you so you can see that. And I happen to use some of our own citrus. Here's some of my fun garnishes, kind of the crazy chef laboratory kind of thing that we do. By looking at the pantry of other things that are available in my garden, that's my first and foremost place I go to for the estate garden. Anything that I can find that is reflecting the season and the terroir, from edible flowers to miniature vegetables, I'm going to try to emphasize those first and foremost. What I did was I took some of our estate grapefruit. Remember that the grapefruit is a real predominant aroma in the wine itself. And I use that just as a little bit of a base, not necessarily to pick up and eat. That would be a little bit too strong and it would actually change the flavor of the wine. And I don't necessarily want to do that. But if you were to take a little bite and you pick up some of the aroma and the essence of that grapefruit and to leave the grapefruit slice behind, I think it's going to be an automatic bridge to the aromas that you pick up. So I have the 3 thin slices on there. I do also have, to go along with this, some sour cream with some chives. The chives snipped fresh from our garden. It's always a great combination, creme fraiche, sour cream, anything like that, creamy texture. It's going to give it that nice mouthfeel, and the chives always go really well with it. Here's some beautiful baby wild fennel that I found from our garden. I just pulled a piece off from there. I can use some of these beautiful fennel fronds for a garnish. We talked about the licorice element that goes really well, and you can kind of pick it up a bit in our Sauvignon Blanc. So I shaved some of that very, very thin. So I've got a little crunch. There's that slightly sweet little anise flavor to it, but I really like the way that it goes well with our wines. It makes the fruit really stand out. It makes it really pop. So I'll put just a tiny bit of the shaved wild fennel on there. I can also garnish with some of those beautiful fronds. Looks a bit like dill, but it definitely has that nice licorice anise type of a flavor to it. I do have some beautiful cucumbers for a little bit of crunch and texture, that nice freshness that kind of mirrors or duplicates what I taste when I have the wine itself. As a little fun extra, One of our other friends and local sustainable products is Tsar Nikolai Caviar. They're going to join us in another one of the sessions, so please join in for that. I thought I would add just a little bit of caviar. So this is their classic caviar from the California sturgeon that they have. Why not? A little more luxurious. So just a tiny little dollop of that on there. And then kind of to finish off, I always think of eating with your eyes. That looks great as it is. We also happen to have some beautiful chai blossoms, adding color to the plate, really making it pop. Some other small flowers, edible flowers from our garden, reflecting the springtime. Everything's looking really beautiful coming along in our garden. Soon enough, we'll have tomatoes and squash and things like that. So everything's all in the works. And then if you have this and you eat it simply, maybe have some beautiful brioche crostinis on the side. You can take that and just eat it all together. Have a beautiful sip of the wine first. Go to your bite, your customized bite on a little crostini with some of the citrus cured salmon, a nice pop of the caviar in there, and then back to that wine. It should be a really nice mix.
Wow, Todd, that looks just amazing. You've got us all hungry and starving, and everyone's like, I don't have that in my quarantine stash, but a lot of your vendors do ship, which is nice, on ice, and are sustainably farmed. So we're looking forward to most of these things you can find in your local store, except probably not the caviar, but I do know they ship, and it doesn't weigh a lot, so maybe it's not too hard to ship.
Yes.
Just delicious. So on the food front, we have with us Jessica Altieri, who is with Wine Channel TV, and also the Four Seasons, and the beverage director for the Four Seasons. She's based in Palm Beach, Florida. And so lots of fantastic sustainable seafood that you have there, Jess. So we've done quite a few Sauvignon Blanc days together, and it's nice to celebrate with New Zealand kicking off today with Sauvignon Blanc Day. But tell us what you like to pair.
I agree. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And I'm definitely hungry now for some of that salmon. It's about 9:15 here in Florida. And I think it'd be a perfect pairing with my wine. Yes, I remember all of our Sauvignon Blanc days in Chicago and all of our events. And now I'm based here in Palm Beach. I'm the U.S. beverage ambassador for all Four Seasons across America, and also the beverage director here in Palm Beach. Our chef, his name is Mauro Colagreco. Google him. He was just named the #1 chef in the world for his restaurant Mirazur in Menton, France. So his first restaurant in the United States was actually based right here at our property in Palm Beach called Florey's. So he really prided himself on having sustainable seafood. And one of the dishes that really stood out in my mind was his seared snapper filet that we have featured up there right now. It has a beautiful cucumber, orange, mint, a little bit of coriander, baby bok choy, and a yogurt shallot sauce. And I think the Sauvignon Blanc would be such a great complement to the bright citrus notes in the fish, and also be able to cut through with the acidity through that creamy yogurt shallot sauce. And, we've been doing a lot of sustainable programs, not only here in Palm Beach, but also at other properties, Emma, that I wanted to share. Our property at Hualalai has actually an on-site oyster and shrimp program. And we actually have green teams around the U.S. at different properties that focus on protecting and conserving the environment as well.
Awesome. That is fantastic. That looks really great. And your programs are renowned around the country, of course, and the Four Seasons hospitality. So that looks just delicious. And any other, cool sustainable efforts that you have going on at the Four Seasons we should know about?
Yeah, I actually am the first and only water sommelier. Yes, you heard that right. Water sommelier for all Four Seasons, actually globally. So I've been striving on procuring and bringing on more sustainable water options for the resorts. I built the first ever water menu, do water trainings, weekly water and wine tastings as well. And I also made sure to have an all sustainable wine by the glass list at our property here too. So we really are pushing to be more sustainable.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much. That's fantastic. And also we have with us Patrick Hurd, who's looking out right exactly where the fish is coming in for him in Massachusetts. And Patrick, you've worked at some amazing properties around the country, around the world, and have always focused on great sustainable products and our Sauvignon Blanc too. So it's nice to see you. So tell us what you're doing there with sustainable seafood and Sauvignon Blanc.
Well, we're doing a lot with both, and thanks for having me. Great to see you, Emma. Well, first with the Sauvignon Blanc, we're serving it by the glass, and we're serving a lot of it by the glass because it goes so well with what we do. We're dominantly a seafood restaurant, and we're really lucky that we have our own marina. We've got a lot of boats, and about 25% of them are fishing boats. The rest are recreational, but we've got boats that bring bluefin tuna in, that bring in haddock. We have our own lobster boat. All the lobster we serve are here. By name boat, and we're doing a lot of great stuff with them. So we know how they're fishing, where they're fishing, what they're bringing in. You know, the staff knows the names of the guys. They're having breakfast with us before they go out or after they come back in. But we're doing some really fun stuff. You know, I was telling you earlier, we did a Saint Supéry wine tasting with Todd Umbach, your sales rep, just before the Corona took us down, and we did a great pairing, which a lot of people don't eat herring unless it's canned or jarred, and we've been getting a hold of some beautiful fresh herring, where we just grilled it with some olive oil, some lemon, some herbs, salt and pepper, and I can't tell you how well that paired with the Sauvignon Blanc. It was beautiful. But one thing we have on our regular menu that we do, and it's a big seller, is a local haddock. It's a very popular fish in New England, and we just lightly crust this with horseradish, and we make a sauce of Sauvignon Blanc with some mashed potatoes and some crisp leeks. Again, a great pairing with the wine.
And Patrick, you're there at Cape Anna Marina, and when are you thinking that you're all going to be reopening up? Do you have a takeout program or anything going on right now?
We don't have a takeout program yet. We're probably going to, as the boats are going back in the water, again, we have 250 slips. So now that we're going to have people back on the property, we'll pick up our to-go and try to service that. But we're a little bit removed from the town. You kind of have to come around the horn to get to us. So we don't have that program going right now. As far as reopening full-time, it's really, we're waiting for the governor to make the call. He just extended us until the 18th, but we have a feeling it's going to be extended longer. So we're just kind of playing it by ear right now.
Yeah, I think that, you know, in the long run, we're all going to be happy that we're staying at home, but it does make us a little bit antsy, I know. But best to stay at home. And we do have on our sustainable seafood page, when you do start doing takeout, we will update that to include our restaurant partners who are doing sustainable seafood around the country with their takeout options. So I look forward to coming to Boston and seeing you and enjoying some wonderful seafood with you.
Yeah, well, it was just a couple of weeks ago we were supposed to get together, but then everything went upside down.
It did. And Todd, I think you had some questions for Patrick.
Sure, I was thinking back on, I was lucky enough to spend some time on Maui, and it was more like a recreational kind of a bycatch kind of a thing, but I can recall being on the line cooking in the middle of the night, you get in the middle of the service, so I get a phone call from some of the captains from the fishermen as they're coming in, asking me if I wanted some of the fish. So it was kind of this great thing because I could get some fantastic fresh ono or mahi-mahi, any of the sports fish as they went out for their recreational day, and they would bring the fish in, and they didn't know what to do with it, and the tourists who were enjoying couldn't, you know, take it, cut it, and cook it themselves. So the captains were always looking for some willing restaurants, and I always knew that it was a great relationship to have with them. It was very small and here and there, but I would imagine with, I was curious, in your location there, in all the years that you've been there with so many different fishermen around, if you have contracts or exclusive kind of availability on some of the different seafood and the different fish that they bring into you.
We do. We've got again, a few boats right here that dock with us. We've got a few in town, but usually we've got a really fun outdoor venue in the summertime where almost everybody ends up coming in for a cocktail. So a lot of the guys that are coming off the boats will come in with a bar and try to do a little bartering for this. And we always end up on the better end of that deal with some great fresh fish. And like you said, the customers just love it. You know, these guys walk in with a basket of fish they just eat it up. But you couldn't ask for better, because you know, we know these guys and we know how they're fishing and what they're doing. So we know that they're not dragging nets on the bottom. We know that their fish hasn't stayed, you know, underneath the boat and the well of the boat for the last 4 days. So it's good for everybody.
I agree. It's a really impactful kind of a thing for them to see the fish come in that fresh, to come up to the counter and watch us actually fabricating it, knowing that they're eating that fish eventually. It doesn't get much more sustainable or fresh than that.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's beautiful. And again, we're very blessed. You know, there's a lot of different fish that come in. You know, we're in Gloucester, which is America's oldest fishing port, and we get so many different types of fish. And as I was saying earlier, we really try to be stewards here with when the how they boats, clean their boats, how they handle their fuel. We know that it's all part of the process. Whatever's in our water ends up out in the greater water. So it's a full circle.
Yeah, it is indeed. And thank you so much, Patrick, for joining us. It's really great to see you. And all of our guests, thank you so much for joining us this week. It's been fun to have you and learn a little bit more about sustainable seafood and what's happening in the restaurants, because that's where, you know, most of our seafood is getting consumed when we're all back up and running. And it's good to be able to make informed choices. And Chef Tod, tell us what's coming up next on the Great Sustainable Seafood Tour.
Well, on our next stop, on our next seafood tour, a cooking technique or method that I'm going to be looking at is actually stewing or braising. And so since we are going to highlight seafood with red wine, which many people never really consider or think about, it is possible, depending on the preparation, the ingredients that you have, to pair up well with red wine. And since we're featuring our Bordeaux blend Elu, I'm going to be doing a seafood cioppino, which is a San Francisco classic type of a seafood fisherman's stew. And in this case, we use some red wine in there to act as the bridge ingredient. So I'll be showing that different technique. And each one of the different sessions that we do will be showing a slightly different cooking method or different cooking technique, whether it's grilling or poaching. So we're trying to work that element into it as well to show a little bit of variety and some diversity in there. I would have to say that this whole subject, and listening to everyone speak, all of our guests, thank you for joining us, that as an instructor before I came here about 2 years ago as a chef instructor up at the Culinary Institute of America at Greystone, I was lucky enough to teach the fish fabrication identification class, and a great part of that course had to do with educating the students on fishing methods, aquaculture, wild fish, endangered type of fish. And I always referred them to the Seafood Watch program. I almost insisted that they download the app or handed them out the pocket guides as well. So it's really important to do that. And I think that any impact that we all have of providing good sustainable seafood or sending out other future chefs on their decision making on what type of seafood that they purchase or buy or serve to their guests, or even at home for any of you, I think it's a really important issue. And I'm glad that there's been so many huge steps towards sustainability for the future. I can recall times, speaking of salmon, the salmon that I had here, the earliest forms of some farm salmon, they were not so good. You know, we found out by working with them that they had issues with the way that they were being raised, the feed that they had, the type of environment that they're in, the water that they were sitting in. There's so many complex issues there. So whether it's the aquaculture or the wild, there's all types of improvements that have been made on the sustainability front. So I'm really encouraged and looking forward to seeing how things will go for the future.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really fun. And we've got Scott Bracey, who's a lobsterman from Cranberry Island, Maine, is going to be joining us next week. And he started some aquaculture a few years ago for oysters and scallops there on Cranberry Island. Really deep, fresh, cold waters, and he's going to be joining us, and we're really looking forward to that, along with our other guest speakers. So it's going to be a lot of fun to have the chefs and the fishermen here with us again, and it will be a wonderful dish that you'll be able to see that Todd's making, and hopefully we'll all enjoy that. Well, thank you all so much for coming tonight, for being with us, and we look forward to the day where we can all eat a little caviar. But until then, Todd, what's really coming out of the pantry are the smoked oysters, the sardines, and the tuna. So what's your big tip for the week on what we can do with those? Because that's the real food that we're eating right now.
Popping open those cans. We've talked before about doing the wonderful tuna melt and pairing that up with some of our wines. I heard that there's the herring or sardines and cured fish like that, salty fish, oily fish, which are really good for you. And people should really be enjoying those. Anything that you can do that's really light, with maybe a vinaigrette, having some pickles to go along with it. You've got a good crusty piece of bread or something like that, and you pop open a really nice, well-balanced Sauvignon Blanc. And it's a great way to enjoy some of your pantry items that you might be trying to go through.
Yeah, I do love sardines on toast or anchovies on toast with a little lemon, and you're good to go on a glass of Sauvignon Blanc. So thank you, everyone. Be well, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Cheers. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.